Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Things That Matter with me, Martie McNabb. If you've been following along for a while, you know that I just can't get enough of hearing stories of the things that we surround ourselves with, the things we adorn ourselves with, the things we keep, the things that matter, and the things that we will leave behind. So that's what this podcast is all about. And today's guest is, I'm so excited because I met her at 1 Million Cups at Fat Pipe ABQ, which I know some of you, again, if you've been following along, have heard this before. It is a co-working space here in Albuquerque, which is where I am right now. And that was where I met Jolynn Baca Jaekel. And she came to this 1 Million Cup, this networking group that's every Wednesday here at Fat Pipe. And I just loved her energy and her smile and her warmth and her just feeling of welcome and delight. So I think soon after that, she invited me to be a part of her live on Instagram. And it was my first live ever on Instagram. And I think I even recorded it in Brooklyn, my camper van. And so that was wonderful. And then recently we reconnected because Jolynn was out in Albuquerque um, uh, not too long ago. And the reason why she was here is because she was helping her parents downsize, right size, go through everything so that they could move. And so she was going through all these things, and obviously some of them didn't matter, some of them mattered a little bit, and some of them mattered a lot. So she had was full on in that whole experience of right of what gets left behind, what gets moved, what gets given away, and what has stories and what's worth keeping. And so when I saw that on Instagram, I was like, Jolynn, you've got to be a guest on Things That Matter. And so that is why we're here. And I'm going to invite Jolynn to the show and tell section of Things That Matter. And I'm going to give you the stage in just 1 second, and then you can take it away.
Fantastic. Well, Marty, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. And when you say I'm going to give you the stage, you are speaking my language because since I was 4 years old, maybe even earlier than that, I wanted to be on stage. So this is so much fun for me. And I love what you do. And I just, like you said, when we met at 1 Million Cups, it was just like this instant connection because what you do just is so inspiring and exciting to me because I'm a proverbial keeper of things, much to my husband's chagrin. And my perspective on this has really shifted over the last year or two because, as you mentioned, we were helping our parents to, I don't even know if you can, I guess it's downsized. It doesn't feel like they downsized, but I get my keeping of things and my attachment to items from them for sure. And so I had to do a lot of soul searching about what is it like, do I need this thing? Is it does it, lessen the memory of the person any by letting go of that item? And it's been a very large exercise for myself, for my family. And there are three girls. I'm one of three girls. I am the worst. I'm the oldest. And so everything is like precious to me. And the middle one is like half and half. And the third one is like, if it were, you know, dirty, are you going to keep it or are you going to clean it? And she's like, and that's putting it politely. We were it was a very good balance. And so when you asked me to do this, I was like, gosh, there's so many things I have that matter. How do I pick one? And the thing that I came up with is this item right here. And that's why I'm positioned right here. I've got my little Christmas tree collection set up. And this item is so precious to me. And while it is a tree, I was very intentional to not have it be Christmas colors because I wanted it to be out all year long. And what it is my grandmother. So I grew up with one maternal grandmother present for my whole life. I mean, I have all grandparents. I had all grandparents, but I was too young to remember any of them except for my maternal grandmother. And I was born of the era where we were all lived together, and grandma was the babysitter, and she was the taxi driver, and she was the support system, and she took us to dance classes, and she might have taken me to get a fake ID at some point in my life. She was so near and dear to me. And I remember growing up, and she had these multiple jewelry boxes. And she wasn't like, she didn't get dressed up all the time. She was very practical in her expression of self. But when she would go to church or like for special occasions, she would get dressed up and wear a brooch and fun earrings. And so she had these jewelry boxes of all this lovely costume jewelry. There were some very few items were of financial, like they were not worth anything except that they were sentimental to us. And so when she passed, we all split up her collection. And I had all of these pieces of jewelry. And then I love jewelry myself. In fact, one of my past careers was jewelry designer. I had a jewelry design business. And so I had a lot of pieces of jewelry. And I had all of these items laying around. And I just didn't know what to do with them. And you want to do something, and you want to honor your grandmother and you don't want to just throw them away. Well, I also have a passion for female entrepreneurship. And so a friend of mine who still has a jewelry design business said, it was like 2 Christmases ago, maybe even longer than that. She said, I'm making these trees. I will take jewelry that's important to you and put it in a tree form. And I thought, perfect. I will have this. She said, what kind of colors do you want? What's important to you? Because I gave her a big bag of jewelry and she said, what must go on the tree? And this is what we came up with. And so I had a gold. It's with the Christmas trees now, but it is out all year long because it's just a tree. It's a gold tree with all the jewelry. And this piece right here was the most important piece because that actually is worth something. And it is the birthstones of all of my grandmother's grandkids, and then just filled in with other stones. And everything else is just it's a combination of jewelry I purchased and then things that were my grandmother's. And so I get to look at it every single day, and then it gets a place of honor at Christmas time. And it's just such a special piece. It's a celebration. My grandmother was like the first strong woman in a long line of strong women in my family. And so, actually, both of my grandmothers. And so, this is a reminder, a constant reminder that, you come from strong stuff and you can do hard things. And I love it because I'm a magpie. I am so attracted to shiny things. And so, it just checks all the boxes for me.
Oh my goodness. There we go.
Yeah,
Wow. Oh, that is amazing. That is gorgeous.
I love it.
I love the real story there. You're from strong stuff and you can do hard
Yeah,
things. And
yeah.
I know
And I think we all need a reminder of that.
absolutely, absolutely. It's I love that. So I if people have been following along as well, I am grateful to have been featured in a book called Past and Present by Allison Gilbert. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And what it was is how can we keep the memory of our loved ones alive? So it was
Mhm.
85 tips of how you keep the memories of these loved ones alive. And one of them was creating different things from, you know, because you're not going to wear her jewelry. You're not going, what use is it if it's in a jewelry box?
Right.
All of it's not out in front of you all the time, so you can remember it. And so I love that. And needless to say, it also is like they're not none of them except for that brooch with
Yeah.
grandchildren's birthstones in it. Um, None of them, were of, heirloom quality or something.
Right.
I
And
get
they're not my style necessarily. And what I purchased, 20 years ago is not what I'm going to wear now, but together they make something even more beautiful.
Yeah, and I love that you put your jewelry in there as well. So like it was you and your grandmother. So it's not just her jewelry, it's actually the combination because you love jewelry as much as she sounded like she loved it as well.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
And I
that's
had sort of forgotten that piece until I was looking at it to talk with you. I was like, oh, so thank you for reminding me that I had done that.
my pleasure. I always love reminding people of, to slow down.
Mm,
I slow down and look around and appreciate like I talk about our homes as being our personal museums,
mm,
our exhibitions of our lives, and you know too often we don't take the time to slow down and consider why we have the things that we have,
right.
um, and why they matter. And we certainly, the bigger thing is I'm sure you, especially going through this transition from your parents, know that so often people sort of like your youngest sister, that so many people are like, oh, my kids don't want any of my stuff, that kind of
Right.
that overwhelming minimalist thing, um, that is out there in the ethos that we hear all the time and all of that. I don't care about things, and but what I've found is it's not necessarily that the children don't want the things. Um, it's that if they're just things without stories, then they
Yes.
are. I did a little mini clip once, things, stuff, junk, and crap. What do you call it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it doesn't have a story, like this beautiful tree that your friend created with your help and your jewelry and your grandmother's jewelry, then it is just it's like you pull up a dumpster, but it
Right.
and I think what I got a sense from you even before this most recent thing with you posting about downsizing and helping your parents move is that your parents did were storytellers though, because it sounded like you brought something about a dress that you wore
Yeah.
at when your father was campaigning as a judge, something.
Right.
So it sounds like it's not just that they had things or their archive or their museum, but they actually did tell stories.
Oh my gosh, so many stories. And that's well, first of all, you said that you encourage people to slow down. And it's funny you say that because you know how there are those little quizzes that on Instagram and wherever you see like what does your name suggest for this holiday season? And one of the things that I looked at just yesterday is I forget what it was, like the first letter and the last letter of your name. And I was supposed to notice things in this month of December, and how then I'm like, oh, I'm noticing the significance of this tree and all that it means. And I will tell you, my parents in the storytelling, those two, I mean, I listen to them. They've been married for 56 years and they're in their 80s, and no two people have more to talk about than those two. And I mean, they will tell each other stories or they will share, they've never meet a stranger, whether it's on an airplane or in a restaurant or in a store. And then the people that they are part of, just moved from New Mexico to North Carolina. And the joke is you're going to have a whole new audience now to tell your stories to. Because in New Mexico, they were part of the fabric of that state. My dad was in politics for a very long time. Well, I mean, since he was a child, he knew he wanted to be in politics. And my mom was born in Las Vegas, New Mexico, she's very proud to say, and then moved to Albuquerque, the big city. And, like the unsung hero behind the politician, they worked together to really create the fabric of New Mexico politics and culture, and they were part of this larger community that I always say, like, we got to have someone tell your story because you are it. When you go, there's no one else that knows these things. And so that is a goal for the new year. I'm like, well, we got to somehow get that down because the stories cannot end with you because they are full of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have to talk because I have some suggestions
Oh, good.
um, about that. But yes, as I mentioned when we got on the call before we recorded, it's like everywhere I go, there's my wife's last name, which is Chavez, and your middle name, which
Yeah.
was your last name, Baca, everywhere you go. So
Yes.
it's like you said, it's integral to this area of the country. So now I'm going to turn over the stage to you again to do, and I'm going to ask the one follow-up question that I ask my guests, and that is, what would you like to have happen with this beautiful tree when you are dead and gone?
Well, I wouldn't have known had you not told me that would be your follow-up question. Because in this season of helping my parents clean out things, my gut instinct is, well, because before I really realized and looked and remembered really that I had incorporated my jewelry in there too, I thought, well, it means a lot to me, but my daughter unfortunately never got to meet my grandmother. So, would it mean anything to her? And having just gone through this process of cleaning out and finding places for things and having to let go and decide what stays, I thought if it causes her stress to have a dust something that's just going to collect dust, get rid of it. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. As I was noticing things, I'm like, she is the only granddaughter. And so there was much discussion when my two sisters and I, we were all pregnant roughly around the same time. We didn't know what we were having. And there was big discussion about who is getting, my grandmother's name was Isabel. Big discussion about who gets to name their child if they have a girl, Isabel. And the consensus was nobody gets to use it as a first name, but it can be a middle name. Well, Parker, my daughter, was the only girl. And so she is Parker Isabel. And so I thought, in thinking about how to respond to this question, like, oh, actually, that represents her namesake. Maybe she wants it. Maybe she doesn't. And I'm going to let her make that decision. But she is my daughter. And I see that she's like, oh, I can't get rid of the stuffed animal because grandma and papa gave it to me. I'm like, I mean, it's a stuffed animal. You could probably get rid of that. So she might want this tree because it might be it's like this physical manifestation of her namesake and her mother, and we're all entwined in this. And my daughter too loves jewelry, so it might be something that she wants to keep. And if it means something to her, I would love for her to have it, but I don't want her to feel like she has to keep it because we've just been in that process of like, what's important to me may not be important to her, and maybe just the sharing of the story and for her to know the history of it is enough, and that would be fine too.
Yes, and that's the whole thing is that they offering your children a choice.
Mhm.
But needless to say, this podcast is and YouTube channel is called Things That Matter, but but it's not that things matter. It's the stories that get attached to them that do.
Right.
And as long as there's a way to pass on those stories and that they can choose whether they keep the actual object or not. So,
Yeah, we did that a lot when we were when we were cleaning things out. I would hold an item and say, this does not mean that I loved grandma any less. It's just that I don't need to hold on to this to hold on to her memory. And one of the things that I kept were when I traveled on the road singing and dancing for a while, and I would write to my grandmother and she would write to me. And it was like this little time capsule of my life too.
right.
And I thought to myself, gosh, and I kept the letters. And I thought, this is something that my daughter will not have because her friends, people don't correspond, they don't write anymore, right? They just text or they email, and it's got lost as soon as you put it out there. And I thought how precious that is that we have this. You can see the handwriting you can like I can feel the paper, and sometimes you can smell the scent and you remember where you were. And I mean, I'm not going to ever get rid of these letters. She'll have to, when I'm gone, she can get rid of them.
Yes, well, we are kindred spirits after all. It's like I definitely it's like there's something about, the tactile
Yeah.
aspect of things that is what brings out things for me. So it's just like
Yeah.
makes things real, it's and like you said, it's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
It's time travel, time capsule to see that. So
Right.
yeah. And needless to say, as you were mentioning about your parents, and you as well, and your sisters, is that I recently did a talk, and it's like, is our history ours alone? And
Oh, yeah.
the reality is it's not. So a lot of the problem is some people are like, I'm going to clear out I'm going to do this. My kids won't take anything. They won't want it. And they make the choices for their kids. And it's like, can you imagine a historical society, or without things, without, letters and objects in it? It's like, so we have to realize that our history isn't ours alone. And it sounds like you and your family know that really well.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Marty, because my mom, my grandmother, that is my mom's mom, and she did that. She took some letters from my mom's birth father and redacted them and like cut things out and then threw them away before my mom could really read them. And my mom always said, I wish I had those letters. I wish I'd saved them before she got rid of them so that she'd understand more about herself too and have some history. And so I think of that. I mean, it's finding that balance, right? Of what's too much.
Right.
For it's like, okay, I don't need a card from every Easter that says "Love you, Grandma," but I'll keep the letters that have the content.
Exactly. It's always a balance. It's always
Yeah.
a balance. So this now is the opportunity to let my look and listeners and uh, know a little bit more about you and the work that you're doing in the world. And you mentioned about being supporter of female entrepreneurs, and also a female entrepreneur yourself. So please take this opportunity. You've got the stage again to let people know more about you and how they can find you.
Well, thank you so much. This is such an honor. It's I love that we get to do this right now. It has been a season of change for myself professionally, and I I have this very storied background. Like my degree was in journalism, and then as one does, I went to sing and dance in New York City. And and that was after becoming an entertainment publicist for television in California. I mean, it was sort of all over the place. I have many interests. And when I had my daughter, I we were living in New York City. I have one daughter, and I thought my husband said, we've got to, no, we're not, we've got to, asked me, do you want to be closer to family? And so we made this move to Northern Virginia, where one of my sisters is. And it was close enough to New York that I didn't feel like I was cutting off ties. But the reality was, I was immersed in being a mom, and I wanted so badly to be a mom. And I was an older mom, and it was a very lucky thing that I got to be a mom. And I wasn't really auditioning anymore. I wasn't doing the things that I was in New York City to do. And so we came to Virginia. And I stumbled upon I had this from being a performer, I had to keep body and soul together somehow. And so I chose to teach fitness because I could count to 8 and I knew how to choreograph a routine. And I started doing that again here. And a friend had reached out to me about this opportunity of entrepreneurship, which I fell into through direct sales, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of start in this direct sales world because it's a gateway, an easy gateway into the world of entrepreneurship. And so I now sort of I kind of fancy myself as like a wellness ambassador because I have aligned myself with various companies whose mission and products I believe in. And I'm firmly in the postmenopausal era. and it's a blessing and a curse, and I get to like navigate it and help people find their way gracefully through it. And with my fitness background, I feel like I have a unique perspective. But in this sort of season of figuring my next step out, you mentioned the Instagram lives that we did. My husband said, "You've now got some extra time on your hands, and you've always wanted to turn this live chat into a podcast." And so that is what I am doing. That's one of the projects I'm doing right now. I'm turning it into a podcast called Doing It Her Way, where I speak to female entrepreneurs, well, just women in general, really. And I like to say my tagline is I talk to women who are solving problems, building businesses, and making bold moves with no blueprints or permission. And I get to talk to really amazing women just doing really exciting things in the world. And I've been like setting all the wheels in motion. You and I talked about this. I'm a one woman show. I did not plan on my parents moving this year and going back and forth to New Mexico. I'm a perfectionist and I'm trying to like be graceful and let go of that and just get the thing done. But the plan is that the podcast will be launching in early 2026. And in the process of all of this discovery and like exploration, what do I really want to do with my life? I found it really powerful to journal every single day. And I've always been a journal keeper. We talked about the tactile, like seeing the words, writing the words, actually, feeling the pen right on paper, what you want to do with your life. And not even your life, but your day. For me, it was like planning out my day. And it got a little overwhelming of like, oh my gosh, you want to do this, you have this grand plan, but how are the nuts and bolts? And so I realized that each day, just really focusing on what was important to me that day, and then starting with gratitude because I'm here, I'm breathing, I have a body that moves, I have parents that are healthy, that are still, they want to move closer to me, right? To start from that place of gratitude helped me to like look at the day in a different way. And at the end of the day, to revisit that page and say, what happened today that you're proud of? And it doesn't have to be, I launched a podcast or I, opened a business. It could be, I made my bed. I walked my daughter to school. Just celebrating the things that you do every single day because they matter. And I don't think we often give ourselves enough credit. And so I had formed this habit and I was using different tools. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to create my own journal. And so that's one of the things I did. I created a journal called It's Your Day because it is your day to do with as you see fit. And it's a guided journal that is blank on the inside and you get to fill it out. It just sort of has daily prompts, morning and evening. And it's, as most things are, available on Amazon, but I have a little mini microsite on my Instagram page. I'm J Baca J on Instagram. I'm Jolynn Baca Jaekel on Facebook. And there's a little microsite. It's linked in all of my social media that has a link to the journal and all the things that I do. But this has been my passion project. I have two versions. This is version number 2. Because I've gone through and like the thing is, it's not dated, so that if you don't do it every day, you don't feel guilty. You do what you can because it's your day to do with as you see fit and as feels good for you. And it's been something that's helped me, and especially in this postmenopausal season, because it can feel like I'm doing so. You do so much to feel better, and sometimes other things fall by the wayside. And so to say that, like, I made a doctor's appointment or a doctor listened to me, I used my voice and I spoke up for myself, that's a thing that you did. And that should be celebrated too, because often we're not celebrated for using our voice. So this is what I'm super passionate about right now.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's your day. I love that idea. So please, yes, everyone, check out Jolynn's journal, and definitely this podcast will be coming out in January. So hopefully we'll have a chance to promote your podcast that will be coming out. So I know it was such a pleasure to going live with you. You're again such a warm and welcoming a woman that it just, even though we didn't know each other well and I'd never been on a live, it felt like totally you made me so comfortable. So I can
Oh,
see
thank
you doing the
well,
same thing.
you would never know that you never went live because it was flawless.
Well, you helped set the stage for that, so I
Oh,
appreciate that. So, yes, so please, all of this information will be in the show notes, of course, and I thank everyone for looking and listening to this episode of Things That Matter with Martie McNabb, and I encourage you, again, as Jolynn and I spoke of, is to make sure it's not that the things matter, it's the stories that get attached to them. So notice, slow down, look around, find a couple of things. And you can do this also with your friends on Zoom. You can ask them what's the significance of the thing behind them. You go into your friend's home or your family's home, ask, just why is that on the mantle? Why is this important? It'll be amazing what you find out from just those little questions about what's the story of this thing and why do you keep it. So I encourage you to do that, and thank you so much, Jolynn, for joining me, and
thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. And I love what you're doing, Marty. Thank you for sharing people's stories with the world.
thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. You too, Jolynn.